Hey everybody, my name is Jake Heller, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Casetext. We're going to be going over today how to use Casetext from the basics to the most advanced parts of using it. I know a lot of you on this call have used Casetext a lot, and some of you have used Casetext only a few times and are very new to the system. And so hopefully for those of you who are expert users, what you'll get out of this is a refresher on how to use Casetext. And for those of you who are very new to the system, you'll see how to use it from the very basic use cases all the way to the most advanced. Before I dive in, a quick introduction to me. As I said before, I'm the CEO and founder of Casetext. I am a former attorney, whereas a litigator at both a big firm and also representing folks in government. And I also have a background in computer engineering. And so I helped build in the early days some of the technology behind Casetext. And thankfully, for all of your sake, I'm not doing much programming anymore. You should be able, you'll see that it's built by some of the best engineers from places like Google and Facebook, et cetera. Okay, so what we're going to cover today in this webinar is how to do essentially 4 things you need to do when you're doing legal research. How to search to find cases and other authorities, how to filter your search results to find exactly what you're looking for, how to pull up documents and read on Casetext, and then finally, how do you use the documents and other authorities you find on Casetext in a brief or in a future, a future work product. And we'll go over all those basic use cases. And everything I'm showing you will be on the live website as it actually is today. So you'll see real live examples of how to use Casetext. Let's start with thing number 1. How do you search and find what you're looking for on Casetext? Now, for those of you who've used the platform in the past, you'll know there are actually a few different ways to search and do research on Casetext. The first way and the easiest way is if you already know the name or citation of the case you are looking up, you can just type that in to the bar and it will be pulled up kind of automatically. So Brown v. Board of Education, there it is. All you have to do is click on it and you're already in the case. So this is for the scenarios where you already know what you're looking for and you want to pull something up really quick. And we call this our type ahead functionality. Similarly, if you already know the citation, for example, for a statute, you can type it in. You don't even have to be a good blue booker, right? I left off the section symbol and the capitalized USC. Doesn't matter. You can jump right into the section of the US code, for example. Same works for cases, the CFR, etc. Let's get into a few more advanced types of searching. So one type of search that many people are very familiar with is a search called a plain language or a natural language search, which is more like searching on Google. And you can do, for example, False Claims Act, right? And you'll notice, by the way, that the system will actually recognize that I'm typing in a legal concept, and it'll even autocomplete that for me if I so choose. So click on that. And now I'm getting cases back about the False Claims Act. I can even say False Claims Act Rule 9b, edit my search at the top. And again, this is more like the kind of search I might do in Google, just typing in the words that I might be doing a search on and seeing what comes back. A slightly more advanced use case is to use what we call our Boolean terms and connectors. And the way you use those is by clicking this little down arrow here. And this will, it's not how you use them, but this is how you see what all the options are. Click this little down arrow at any time, you can see all the different options for how you can search. And even you're able to click one of the options to add it. So for example, if I want something very particular, like exactly this search within 10 words, that's what this means, /10 means within 10 words of Rule 9b, or FRCP 9b, or, right, you can go on and on. You can do the kinds of advanced searching that I'm sure many of you are used to from using other tools like LexisNexis or Westlaw or Bloomberg Law. You search here, and that will execute this exact search, right? And so a lot of different ways to do basic keyword-based searching, whether they be autocomplete, you have the name of the case, the citation of a case or statute, the regular keyword searching, or searching with Boolean terms and connectors. Of course, many of you know that we have one last and preferred way to search, which is using CARA. CARA, as many of you know, stands for the Case Analysis Research Assistant. The idea behind CARA is that it helps you find cases and other authorities extremely fast and with extreme ease, and that are extremely on point. I use the word extreme a lot, I guess. I'm a pretty extreme person. So the way that it works is it's able to read in a litigation document like a brief, complaint, memo you're writing, a draft of a brief, etc. It extracts from that document the facts, legal issues, jurisdiction, and motion at issue to find you cases that are extremely on point while still being in the same jurisdiction and on the same legal and factual issues. In fact, as many of you have probably already seen, there is a comparison study conducted by a third party, the National Legal Research Group, that found that when you research with CARA, you find cases 25% faster and that are 21% better than cases that you find using LexisNexis. So it gives you a major advantage when you do your research. How do you use CARA? It's pretty simple. All you have to do is click this orange CARA button over here and pull in a brief or complaint. So the example we'll be using today is an example from a baseball litigation involving an antitrust issue, right? And the question in this brief before the Ninth Circuit is whether or not basically baseball, the MLB can in fact be sued for antitrust violation, right? And you can pull it in here. My big tip when you're using CARA is start your searches really, really broad and let CARA do the heavy lifting. Focus in on the high-level legal issue or legal principle that you want to research, and let CARA do a lot of the heavy lifting first. And only narrow down further and further and further if you're seeing things that aren't specifically what you're looking for. So, for example, I'm not selecting any jurisdiction, something I'll go over in a second. I am only just typing the word antitrust. And what you see comes back in a matter of seconds are going to be a number of cases that CARA thinks are highly relevant and on point, yet are in a, in oftentimes in the same exact or similar jurisdiction, doing similar factual situations and similar legal issues, right? So, for example, the first case, although not about Major League Baseball, is a case about, Major League Football. And the next case is about national basketball, the NBA, and another NFL case, San Diego's Chargers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So CARA has clearly picked up on the fact that we are, what we're looking at is issues about whether professional sports organizations and associations can be subject to antitrust violations. And of course, if you dig into these cases, they directly address the question of whether or not a major league sports association can in fact violate antitrust laws and do so from a federal appellate court position. So these are all the ways that you can use Casetext to search, whether it be kind of the basics all the way to the really advanced, which includes CARA. And again, we have found that people who use CARA oftentimes find cases that they never would find before, that are more highly on point, that are really, really useful, and I very strongly recommend you use it while you're doing your research. Now that we're on the search screen, we'll work on how do you filter and narrow your results, something you're really looking for based on what you search for. And that's what we're going to focus on next. Second part of legal research. Once you're here, what do you do next? Let me show you how to kind of navigate the screen and how you do some of the more advanced use cases. So for something that's not so advanced, say I go, okay, that's nice, it's from the DC Circuit and SDNY, et cetera. But what I really want to see are cases that are in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and the courts below. There are a few different ways you can do that. The first, you can click this down arrow, and you can select the very specific jurisdictions that you care about, right? So say I only care about the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and the specific California district courts, not the other ones, then click the down arrow and be very specific. Click here to select it all, or unselect it, right? So clicking on this box over here selects the court from above and all of the courts that report into it, including the bankruptcy courts, and the bankruptcy appellate courts, etc. So if I want to see a broad search of the Ninth Circuit, I click there. I click Apply Jurisdictions, And now we have a much more narrow, more targeted list, right, of things that are only within the Ninth Circuit. If you want to clear your selection, you can click Clear All on the federal and clear all on the state. If you select any states, you click Apply again, and selecting no jurisdiction is like selecting every jurisdiction, right, all state and federal. So that's how you filter by jurisdictions. You can, of course, do an unlimited combination, of whatever you like. There is no limit on that, and it just works. Something I want to show you is something that's actually coming very, very soon, although it's still in development, is very soon, and I want to show this to you now so you can know to kind of expect it in the near future. Very soon, what you'll be able to do is save combinations of jurisdictions. So, for example, if I click on Arkansas into Circuit and say favorite jurisdiction and call this, 5th plus ARC, that will be there for me, and I can actually switch, my different jurisdiction selection based on what I'm interested in doing right now. So that's something to expect soon. As you can tell, this isn't on the live website yet, but it's something that I know for a lot of you who use the website a lot have been asking for, and I wanted to let you know about it now because probably sometime later this week, this feature will be unlocked for everybody. So look out for that soon. Okay. Other ways you can search and narrow within. The other most common way you can search and narrow within it for a case is by just changing the words up here, right? So you can, of course, edit in a limited amount, the words used up here. So actually, I only care about this within antitrust in the same paragraph as baseball, and now my CARA search will only return antitrust in the same paragraph as baseball. You can also, of course, if you need there to be a word in there and you want to narrow your search but not change what's going on at the top, add an extra word here. So outside players, and that will add, narrow all the searches I'm seeing. You can see, by the way, that it's getting more and more narrow as I do this. It will narrow the group of things I'm looking for to just the cases that include players. I should take this moment to note that I can always switch back and forth between keyword results, CARA AI results, and cited in. So let's talk about what that means. Keyword results means not using the power of CARA, right? These are cases that are just based on the words antitrust in the same paragraph as baseball with the word players, right? Using it to kind of narrow it down, right? CARA AI results, on the other hand, are cases that are using the power of CARA to rank your search results so that it's more on point legally, factually, jurisdictionally, and the same motion at issue. In the Cited In tab are only cases that were cited in the brief you've uploaded. So this is only available to you when you upload a brief. As you'll note here, at the very top are all the cases that have been overturned or reversed that have been cited by the brief you've uploaded. So there's going to be a quick kind of shepherdizing check you can do so you can see what's been overturned. It's actually ordered and organized by the things that were cited to the most by the brief. So after Plessy and Dr. Miles, Flood and Toulson and Mackey are the ones next because that's what the brief that we've uploaded has been citing to the most. It also will include statutes below, and if it ever, for some reason, thinks maybe it missed a particular citation, it will also say that at the very bottom, so you can make sure you can look into that. Although it obviously very, very, very rarely happens. But if, for example, if your opposing counsel uses a non-standard form of citation, and we can't catch most of the non-standard forms, use a very non-standard form with a lot of typos, then I'll say, hey, you should just check this one out. I think there might be a typo here. Okay, a few other powers you have while you're filtering down your search results. One, as you may have noticed, there's this little symbol next to every single one of the documents as you're reading them that says, if you put your mouse over it, it says cited in your document. What does that mean? Well, when you're in the CARA AI results, you can see all of the cases that were already cited by the brief you uploaded. This is really useful because if you're doing your, for example, pulling your own draft of a motion, then you can see all the cases that you already cited and say, okay, I already know about this one. Even though CARA says, yes, it's really relevant, I know about this one, I can move on to the next one. And if opposing counsel cited it, it's also like, okay, yeah, opposing counsel is obviously citing some really important stuff. But the absence of that little symbol here means that CARA thinks the most important case you should be looking at is a case that was not cited in the brief. So it's worth taking a look at, because based on the brief and the few words we've used, CARA has deducted that this case might be really, really important to you, so you should definitely read it. And in fact, if you want to make it really easy to only see cases that were left out of the document you've uploaded, the brief or your opposing counsel's brief or the draft, etc., just click this little switch, Hide Cited Authorities. And now the lists are only cases that the other side decided to leave out, right? For example, if you uploaded the other side's brief or that you omitted from your brief. It doesn't mean, just because CARA recommends it, doesn't mean it's necessarily the most relevant, the top case you want to read. It's just likely to be that way, right? The standard I'd use is it's definitely worth a look. Okay, so you can turn this on or off to hide and unhide the cited authorities. Another little symbol you may have noticed as you're reading through these is the eyeball. What the eye basically means is, when was the last time I saw this case, right? If I saw this case really recently, I put your mouse over it, it's viewed 8 minutes ago. No eyeball, right? The text is not purple. It means I have not yet reviewed these cases on Casetext. It's another really simple way of knowing whether I've seen something. But also, if you look at this, there are some cases I saw 15 or 20 days ago, right? So, okay, I saw this case, and maybe it was when I was working on a different matter, and I should revisit it because CARA is recommending it. Or you go, oh yeah, I remember what I saw it 20 days ago. It wasn't relevant now, wasn't not relevant, wasn't relevant then, not relevant now, moving on, right? Either way. So those are some really useful ways of kind of navigating through the search results. You can always, of course, do really quick filters on your jurisdictions here. So I can turn off all state, or if I've selected a particular jurisdiction like the Third Circuit, I can turn that on and off very quickly over here to only maybe the ones that I want, for example. Or I can switch back to all state and federal by clicking here. And I can narrow by date. For example, if I just click in here and say I only want things since 2011 and don't fill out the other side, then it's just 2011 to the present. I can also fill out the date range like that and say I want specifically between 2011 and 2013, and now I'm seeing only cases in that short time frame, right? If I delete everything in here and hit enter again or click the search bar, then it clears that, and I'm back to seeing cases from any time. Okay. Final, most important way that you can sort and filter your results is by looking at different content types. And for this, actually, I'm going to switch over to the keyword results so I can show you all the different content types. Analyses is really powerful and something I really strongly recommend that you guys use a lot, which is articles written by fellow attorneys, oftentimes at great firms, on legal developments, changes in precedent, and trends. And the way that we've collected these articles is by working in partnerships with now over 700 different law firms. There are over 500,000 articles in our database. So there are usually of extremely high quality because the people writing these have a reputation at stake. And they're exactly the kind of things you probably see if you Google for a legal question and you find that really helpful 4 or 5 paragraph article by a firm like Orr, Carrington, and Sutcliffe. You go, thank you. This is exactly what I was looking for. And in fact, this is a article about the case that we just uploaded, right? 5 or 6 paragraphs, really, really useful, and can maybe give you leads to other cases you want to read, or at least give you a 5 or 6 paragraph way of understanding what happened in the case. Very strongly recommend that you check these things out. Briefs right now are publicly filed federal briefs. We basically get them for PACER, for those of you who have a lot of relationship with PACER. Even if you're just working on a state-specific issue, I strongly recommend that you check out the briefs database, because oftentimes state issues sometimes end up in federal court, and you're almost always going to find a really good work product example from great attorneys in this database. So in this case, we found another case about baseball and Major League Baseball. It's probably going to be about antitrust, right? And you can navigate to the different sections within here. You can download it to your desktop, print it. You can even see what are all of the cases that were cited by the brief in question and see kind of little snippets of them. So you can maybe find other cases that you're looking for and jump into those cases. It's a great way to discover new and better information. Regulations currently covers the CFR. There are no regulations that talk about antitrust in the context of baseball, so we'll return to that in a second. Statutes, surprisingly, it gets covered, but this searches through state and federal unless you focus on specific jurisdiction. Holdings are short and succinct holdings of every case. The way that we get these holdings is when one case references an earlier case and explains what that case is in a very, very succinct and direct manner. So, for example, City of San Jose, the Office of Commissioner of Baseball, was described in a later opinion as applying the baseball exemption to antitrust challenge to franchise relocation, right? And essentially the way I use this is a search engine that only searches just the most important stuff and none of the fluff, right? If the words you're searching for appear in the holding to a case, it's not going to appear somewhere random in like the boilerplate or in a offhand fact about the case. This is what the case is really about. And so you can find extremely on-point cases this way. I'm going to broaden my search just for a second. And look in black letter law. Black letter law is a unique and interesting database. We've essentially extracted every single time a court has said it is well established or it is well settled, right? Or it is axiomatic or it is black letter law or what have you. The idea of this is it's a very easy way to find things that are well settled, well established law, at least according to the judges who write these opinions. And what a lot of attorneys use this for is kind of like precedent on steroids, where you can just find a really great statement, like it is axiomatic that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you can say, okay, listen, if I quote this to the court, it doesn't just carry the weight of precedent, it carries the weight of a judge saying it is well settled, right? And that might carry just a little more weight. It's really great quotes to plop into your brief, and very easy to do so. Okay, those are the major content types in Casetext. Final thing to go over is a few other ways to sort and filter your opinions. As you can see here, especially for those of you who practice in jurisdictions like California, there are times when you want to be able to hide unpublished or unreported cases. So if, for example, we did a different kind of search, like it's obviously not a real search anybody would ever do, and I decided to limit it to California. If I wanted to, I can hide unpublished cases to make sure the only cases I'm seeing in this list are cases that I know I can rely on and cite with authority, right? And you can toggle this kind of on or off just by clicking it. So now it's on, now it's off. Other things I can do in terms of sorting and ranking of cases is up here, this kind of sort. There are 4 different ways to sort, 5 if you include CARA, so I'll get to that in a second. One way to sort is by newest to oldest, right? So these are literally cases that came out within 24 hours, and we always get cases in the 24-hour time span. One is by oldest to newest, right? So you want to see those cases from the 1850s about personal injury. One is by site count. So what is just the most important case by site count that covers what I'm talking about? And of course, there's our relevance algorithm that takes into account a number of different factors, including the number of sites the case has, the number of times it talks about your issue. Does your issue appear in the holding to the case? It's up here in bold. How recent is the opinion? How high of a court, right? The relevance algorithm is very complex, uses a lot of different factors, and so it's oftentimes going to bring you the best results. Of course, the final way to rank things is by CARA AI, and what I mean by that is if you're sorting by CARA AI, it means that you are ranking cases based on the similarity between the case you're currently researching. For example, the brief memo complaint on the case you're currently looking at, the similarity between that and the cases in our database. So that's the final way to rank cases. Okay, so we've gone over now how do you do basic searches and how do you filter your search results, which brings us to the third part, which is how do you bring up materials to read on Casetext, and how do you kind of navigate and read an opinion. Obviously, to find, once you found an opinion, just click on the title and it opens it right up. And within this this kind of case page is a lot of power we're going to go over. But actually, I want to go back and go over one last thing on search results, which is something that is coming very soon that I want to show you guys a kind of sneak preview on. What's coming soon, this is another thing that's not there yet, but will be there hopefully by the end of the week or early next week, is a concept where you're able to navigate within the paragraphs of a case that match your search results really, really easily. So I'm going to use a search that I did earlier to show you what this means. Imagine a search for False Claims Act Rule 9b. What you're used to probably seeing are case results where there's kind of a short little snippet, like ellipses, dot, 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 a few words where it matches. Here we actually show you the whole paragraph that has the most matches in the top case that had my search results. I can even actually navigate through all the different paragraphs, including these left and right arrows, from U.S. XRL clause in the laboratory report, and see, kind of read the paragraphs before even clicking on the case, see what was written about that case, right, and about the specific legal issue I was looking into, right? And so this gives you the power as a researcher, before you even jump into the case itself, to see whether or not this case deals with this question in depth. And by the way, looking at both the holding, right, Rule 9b applies claims in the False Claims Act, and looking at these paragraphs, kind of skimming through these, I can tell this is a case that discusses my legal issue very deeply, and it's something I probably want to jump into. So this is something new. We welcome feedback actually from our users. So if you see this, hey, that'd be great, but it'd be even better, for et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let us know. Something that is currently in development, and something I thought I'd show you right now because I think it's pretty cool. It's going to save you a lot of time, because you'll know by clicking left and right, very quickly whether or not there is something that matches what you're looking for. Right? And you do this with all the cases for which there are multiple matches. In this case, this issue is obviously written about a lot. There's a lot of cases, a lot of matches. Okay, so that's something to look out for soon. Let's get back to you found that perfect case, right? You found the case. You can tell by the search results something you really want to read. You open it up. How do you kind of read and understand this case? Well, a few things first to navigate your eyes around the page. Title of the case, obvious. We will tell you whether or not it's been overruled or negatively treated on appeal. I'll show you an example of when it has been overruled or reversed in a second. Jurisdiction, date, you can even see the full title of this, right? That was actually, on the docket, for example. It's such a short title. You also can see all the different types of citations this case has been assigned. The California Supreme Court case, and so it's had a number of different citations. But the citation, the canonical citation, will be the one at the top, the one that's kind of called out first, and the one that we'll use for citation and pagination purposes. You can also see in these three boxes, the reason they're up here first is the idea is to give you a very clear idea of what this case is, so you understand before you even start reading, the opinion itself, whether this is something you want to read. In the very front and middle are the summaries. These are all the holdings that other courts have given this case, right? Usually just 1 or 2 sentences max, and we have about 25 of them for this case. It's a very popular case. And the idea is, you expand out the summaries. By reading these few sentences, you can tell what this case is about. It's about the economic loss rule, misrepresentation claims, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And just by scrolling through these sentences, you don't have to necessarily scroll through all of them. 25 is kind of a lot. But scrolling through even just a few, you'll get a very good sense of whether or not this is a case you want to read. On the right are the analyses. Those are those articles we were talking about earlier, written by great firms. And even just judging by the headlines, you might get a really good sense about what this case is about. If you're not seeing something you're looking for, and you say, maybe this is not relevant to me. If you are seeing something you're looking for, you might say, okay, this is something that I might want to dig into deeper, right? We also have the citing cases. And again, these are going to be the kind of quotes at the very top. The sentence right before people tend to cite the Robertson helicopter, right? The rule prevents the law of contract and law of tort from resolving to one another, the California economic loss rule, et cetera. Again, another really quick way of deciding, is this something that I want to read? Which are also really great ways of jumping to the citing cases and the analyses, something we'll dive into in a second. Okay, say you decide, yes, this is a case that I really want to read. You just start, you can do a number of things. First thing you do is just start reading it, right? And jump right into the text. and you kind of scroll through. As you'll note at the very top, we'll update where you are in the pagination by updating this number over here, the 985, right? That means, and you can see the pin site as I'm scrolling through tick up as I scroll through it, right? You can also see where footnotes are in line, so to jump to the bottom of the text, you can kind of see them right here. So here's footnote 5, right? And so that's how you might read on Casetext. You might have noticed as I'm reading through Casetext, as I'm still trying to decide whether this is a relevant case or doing a little more discovery, you may have noticed these kind of green highlights. These green highlights are a tool called key passages. Key passages means that these sections of the case, unlike other sections of the case, have been discussed extensively by other courts, and usually directly quoted by other courts, and they might be worthy of further investigation. What you can do with a key passage is click on either this quote symbol on the right or the text itself, and that will pull up all of the cases citing that passage. If you want, you can just dive into one of them really quickly, or you can click to open a new tab that will show all the 37 key passages cases that cite this specific key passage, right? And you can even filter these ones to say, I only want to see ones that deal with economic loss. This might be all of them, but I only want to see, I guess it is, but you can at least see how it discusses the economic loss. You can also say, I only want to see state cases, not federal cases, or vice versa. And if you're ready, you can close. You can even see like the newest cases that talked about this concept, right? Obviously, it's talked about this case. This specific quote has been quoted really recently in the Northern District of California, also by the Kentucky Supreme Court. Might be worth checking out, right? So worth digging into. So that's how you use key passages. A really powerful way to focus in your legal research. So besides just reading the case, you can also do very specific searches within the case. You can jump right to the most important part. For example, if I want to see specifically how personal injury deals with the economic loss doctrine, I can actually use those booleans and terms and connectors to really focus in to the times when economic loss and personal injury occurs in about a paragraph of each other, right? And then the way I did that is you can tell I'm using quotes to find the topics with the next, within the same word, as kind of one word, and I'm using /p to find within the same paragraph. So I'm able to really quickly kind of do a search. I'm also able to kind of hit enter here or hit the search button with nothing in here, and it takes away all the highlighting. So if you want just kind of a clean reading experience, you can do that as well by taking away all the highlighting. And notably, you can have a different search here than you have up here, right? This is a search with which I used to find the case. This is the search I used to kind of narrow within the specific document. A few last things about reading and understanding cases. If you want to see all the cases that did cite to this case, you click the House Cited tab. There have been 422 approximately. And you can do, again, select the courts, hide unpublished cases, search within to only be about, RICO cases. Doesn't make any sense. Apparently it does. Or clear that. You can, it's automatically sorted by what we call depth of treatment. That is to say, the one case that is cited Robinson the most times is United Guaranty Mortgage Company. And the second case is cited the most times is Nita, Pacific Corp, et cetera. But you can also say I want the newest case to cite it, the oldest case to cite it, so probably the one that came immediately afterwards, or the one case to cite it that's been cited the most, that has itself been cited the most times. Briefs are all the federally filed briefs in our database that have cited to Robinson Helicopter Corp, right? And so you can see kind of quickly here what and how they've talked about the Robinson Helicopter Corp, and you can dive right into it and see the brief that from Traum and Sanders that discussed Robinson. Get back. Analyses, like we talked about before, are all the articles from firms like Sedgwick and Pepper Hamilton and K&L Gates that have discussed the case you're currently reading. And again, they might talk about how the doctrine has changed, a new case that came out that might be worthy of note, an overview of the doctrine overall. They're usually just 5 or 6 paragraphs, and usually very, very good at getting you at the answer you want. Go back to the Read tab, and you'll be reading again. Okay, that's most of how you navigate through and understand a case. I should note that navigating through and understanding statutes is a little bit different. We're not going to go too much into them. But if, for example, I browse to a section of, say, the U.S. Code, I can always, traverse kind of the next section and the next paragraph by hitting next section, etc. And I can always navigate up and down, for example, going all the way back up to Chapter 3 or back to, United States Code overall, etc. Very easy to navigate around and see your next and previous sections. Let's go back to that case you're reading for a second. We're actually even to pull up a new case. If you ever want to see if a case is overturned or reversed, that will be noted for you. And by the way, the reason it's not auto-completing the Plessy v. Ferguson is because I'm currently looking only at California courts. So I'm going to clear that, apply the new jurisdiction, and here's Plessy v. Ferguson. Within Plessy, you'll notice this red box at the top that follows you everywhere. That is saying that it's either been reversed on appeal, has become bad law by being, for example, superseded by a statute or becoming subsequently unpublished, right, by an act in the California courts and similar jurisdictions, or it has been overruled by subsequent authority. And that's always the very top, right under the opinion title. You can click there and say, oh, crud, it's an overruled by Brown v. Board. Better click there. And you can dive right into Brown v. Board and even do a quick search. Curious where it talks about Plessy. And as you all know, Plessy was, overturns Brown v. Board. So that's how you might find whether or not the case you're looking for has been reversed, right? Brown v. Board, on the other hand, has not been overruled, negatively treated on appeal, so there's just a blue dot at the top. We don't make a whole thing about it. Unlike Westlaw or LexisNexis, we do not do the thing where everything is a yellow flag. We find that to be more distracting than anything. If you ever want to see how a case has been discussed, you just click How Cited. Okay. Once you've found the case you're looking for, we're on the final piece, right? Once you found the case you're looking for, there are a number of things you can do with it to save it and use it for later use. First things first, if you find a passage you really like, you can always copy it with citation. I'll show you what this looks like. So what we'll do is we'll copy the citation for you. Sorry, it takes a second to my computer to load up Microsoft Word apparently. But it will copy the citation for you, and it will take the correct pin site, so wherever we were in the opinion, and the correct blue booked format for the case citation itself. So for example, this is a quote right immediately after what I quoted, Brown Board of Education 343 U.S. 483 on page 495, 1954. If this was a lower court, it would not be empty here. It would actually specify the court, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're in good hands. I was a law review president, so I'm really nerdy about this kind of stuff, and we try as much as possible to be to format these things exactly correct. Another few things you can do with copy citation, just so you know about them. If you select a passage that is more than 50 words, the program will automatically turn that into a block quote for you, right? The reason being that more than 50 words is supposed to be block quoted in briefs, so it will do that very quickly. And there's a final way to do copy with cite. It's called copy with a parenthetical citation. All this does for you is it shifts so that the citation is actually, the quote is actually in a parentheses after the citation, right? And this is something that I did all the time when I practiced, and just makes your life just a little bit easier. So there are 3 different ways to copy with cite. If you found a passage you really like and you want to revisit it later, you can also highlight it, right? So you probably saw that third option here. You can highlight and later delete the highlight when you click on it. And that means that next time you pull up the opinion, if you see something, as you're reading through it again, you will see, oh yeah, that's the part that I really like. And I should mention, talking about reading things again, you can always access your search history by clicking up here, right? So, for example, it's recognized that I highlighted these 2 sections, right? I've copied or cited these sections, right? That I went through all these different parts of the U.S. Code, and you can, did these searches, sorted by, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can always jump right back into where you were, based on whatever day you were doing it, And of course, if you highlight a section, you click on it, it'll bring you right back to the case and zoom you right to the part of the highlighted section. So you can see immediately, again, jump right back into the research you were doing. Okay, a few other things you can do when you found that perfect case you may want to use or reuse. You may want to bookmark it. To save it into a folder, click this down arrow. You can say, either select one of the folders you already like this is an anti-slap case, it's not really, and I'll show that here. Or you can put in a new folder, for example, civil rights cases. And now it'll be saved in civil rights cases. You can always click this to remove the bookmark. Click this again to add it to your generic list of bookmarks. But if you ever want to save it to a folder, use this down arrow. You can print or PDF. These do very similar things, but at the end of the day, what they bring you back is a very well formatted 2-column PDF that you can, for example, use for your own purposes in your hard drive or submit to the court. For what it's worth, in the PDF, the way that it works is that the pagination is in line, and so you'll see the kind of star 490. And that will let you know that the page is changing, right? Very similar to other platforms you may have used in the past. Hopefully it's very readable and easy to kind of digest. And I should note you can also copy a citation with just using the copy button up here. If you don't want to go through the whole rigmarole of selecting text, you just want to copy Brown v. Board, 347-4843, you can do that as well. So a number of different things you can do once you found that perfect case. Okay, so what we've covered so far is how to do basic searches on Casetext. Once you've done the search, how do you filter and narrow by a specific jurisdiction, by unpublished, published, by keywords, by date range, by sorting in different ways. Then once you finally found the item you're looking for, how might you read and understand whether or not it's something that's worth reading, and how might you use that in a future brief or work product by either saving it as a PDF, putting in a bookmark for later, highlighting, or a copy with citing. And that covers some of the basic use cases for Casetext and how you might get the most out of your legal research experience. Research on Casetext covers probably for many of you 95% of what you want to do. I'm going to spend the next few minutes, next 5 minutes or so, going over some more advanced stuff for all of you on the call that you may really like to see and I think might be very interesting to you. And after that, I want to spend the last 10 minutes answering questions. And so, so you feel free to ask questions over the next 5 minutes as I talk, and I'll be very, very happy to respond to those questions at the end. Anything is open game, so feel free to ask me anything. Okay, first kind of advanced use case of Casetext that I think is really exciting is something kind of, it may seem kind of nerdy and small, but it makes a big difference for the people who know how to use it. And that thing is that once you use CARA, and every single piece of what you use on Casetext is a little bit smarter. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Some of you may have seen me use this example in the past, so apologies for using it, but I think it's a fun example. Miley Ray Cyrus was sued once for allegedly stealing lyrics in a copyright dispute. And the claim essentially is that she stole small snippets of lyrics, and those lyrics are originally owned by a Jamaican pop star named Florgon, Michael May, who wrote a song in the 80s, right? That's the claim. So say I did a search using the Miley Ray Cyrus case, this, a basic search like copyright. And what I came back with is a case that I actually know to be very on point. This is a case that involves another popular performing artist named Usher, right, who was sued for a very similar thing, right? The real question in this case is a copyright infringement case about whether or not the specific phrase used in this very popular song called "Caught Up" is copyrighted by the plaintiff, who's kind of a nobody artist. Okay, interesting, right? So CARA is really good at finding really on-point cases. What you may not know is when you go to the house cited list, these cases are also sorted by CARA, right? So by default, what you'll see is that if you have a CARA brief involved, and you go to the house cited list, sort by CARA is on by default. So what does that mean in practice? What it means in practice is that all of these cases will also be on the same facts and legal issues as CARA, as the brief that you uploaded. This first case, I just will let you know, is a case about Kanye West and whether or not Kanye allegedly stole lyrics, also in the Southern District of New York, right? So very, very relevant jurisdiction. They didn't bring up the Tennessee or the Ninth Circuit case first, right? Because CARA knows to rank that as a good jurisdiction. The second case, bonus points to anybody on the line who knows who Knowles Carter is, but she's more often known by her first name, Beyonce, right? Beyonce Giselle Knowles Carter. Another case where a very popular performing artist in the Southern District of New York is being alleged to have infringed copyright over the alleged stealing of lyrics, right? So CARA is actually most powerful not where there are only 8 citing cases, but sometimes you go to certain cases and there are thousands of citing cases, and there's no way you could possibly read all of them. Let CARA rank the ones that are most relevant to you and the things that you're currently working on. So that's one really, really powerful, more advanced use case. Another advanced use case we haven't really covered is the ability to navigate through search results really quickly. So you may have seen this button up here. This is all relevant to my CARA search result. I can really quickly skim through and pull up the cases that seem like they're relevant or not to me by just clicking next, 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 previous, right? And click back to the results by clicking here. Third thing that is not necessarily advanced on the site right now, but something that's coming very soon that I'm going to give you all a preview of, is something that's coming, again, in the next couple of weeks, is a new way of navigating through the case results. So what you're seeing here is a screenshot of what we're building. And what you'll see on this page is that we are going to be adding a few new things, including the ability to get recommended cases. So what are the cases that CARA recommends based on Feist v. Rural Telephone Service? Click here and you can see all the cases that CARA recommends. The find and document will be much easier to use, right? Because it's going to be in the corner, not kind of hanging off to the side and kind of not as much in your way. And you'll be able to browse on the left side, which is probably a little more natural for most of you from what we've heard. So that's another kind of, the recommended cases especially is a more advanced use case coming up soon. These are all cases that don't necessarily cite to Feist, but that are really highly relevant to it according to CARA's algorithm, so are worth probably checking out. Something that is you can look forward to in the next couple of weeks, something that you can look forward to seeing very soon. Final thing, I wouldn't call it necessarily advanced use case, but something that not enough of you do, and I hope you do more of, which is clicking this little smiley face at the bottom. What is this? This is the easiest way to get in touch with folks at the Casetext staff. We usually reply within just a few minutes. All you have to do is click New Conversation, and you are all of a sudden chatting with somebody live who will try to get onto your issue as quickly as possible. And you can say, hey, I'm having trouble, doing X, Y, and Z. How do I get help? And people can jump on the line, really quickly and walk you through your problem. If you need a phone call, we'll probably give you a phone call, whatever it takes. Finally, if you don't want to talk to somebody necessarily, but there might be an answer to your question, you can always start typing in here and do a quick search. And it's very likely that in our articles database, we have covered, what you're looking for. And you can even click See More Results and jump into our help.casetext.com, which has literally over 100 articles where you can see all the different ways, from our citator to our video library to the feature limit case page, et cetera, all the different ways you can get more information. So I'll leave it at that. I want to, strongly recommend that folks check that out. All right, we're going to leave the last 10 minutes here for questions. I see a few, so I'll start answering them to the order that we got them. So one question was, how do I search using a plain language query? Very good question. Easiest way to do that is to treat this search bar like you'd treat Google. So folks remember, I went over this kind of in the beginning. I don't have to do any special kind of quotes or within paragraph or whatever, just type it in. This is the kind of search I might do in Google and see if it applies. You can, if you want to, type in the form of a question, but to be honest, I think that only has the opportunity to confuse the system more than it'll help. But you can also do like, does Rule 9b apply to the False Claims Act? What the system will honestly do is it will basically take off a lot of the words that aren't substantive and really focus on the words that are substantive, right? So now it's going to look for Rule 9b, False Claims Act apply, and that's what it gets back these kinds of results. So those are the few different ways you can search using kind of what are called plain language queries. The one I recommend you to do is again, treat it like Google. Put in the few words that you know apply and focus in that way. So I hope that answered the question. Another question we got is, can you secure, what is the security arrangements around uploading briefs and potentially confidential work products to CARA? And I'm really glad that was asked, so I didn't cover that. The way that CARA works, and when you drag and drop the document in, is it will process and understand the issues inside your brief or complaint, and it will then immediately and permanently destroy all the full text of that brief or complaint. So although it will understand how to rank your search results, there will be no record on our databases or anywhere else of anything you uploaded, except for on your own hard drive, of course. And that's important because, as many of you know, we work with some of the biggest law firms in the country, Quinn Emanuel, White & Case, DLA Piper, et cetera. And we had to go through very extensive security reviews. And they would never have said yes to a security review unless we made super, super sure that everything was extremely secure and was never stored on our servers. So you can feel confident, as these big firms do, in using CARA, where it never stores anything on Casetext servers and uses bank level security. You can feel confident that you can use it with confidence. One question was, will state court appellate briefs be added to the database? And the answer is yes, we're working on it. It's a little bit harder than federal because there is no one pacer for all 50 states, but we are working on getting it. I think the best thing you could possibly do to help motivate us to do it more is by chatting or writing in saying, here is the state that I live in, here are the kind of briefs I'm looking for, and if you want to be super helpful, here's where I get this if I didn't have Casetext or Lexis or Westlaw. Here's like the e-filing systems that they use. And we are actively trying to build relationships, especially in a lot of the bigger states like New York, Texas, California, Florida, but many smaller states as well, with e-filing organizations and e-filing websites for states to try to make sure that we get we get as much coverage as we possibly can. So I think it's high up on the list in terms of content coverage. Thank you for asking my question. So one question was asked is, when researching a statute or regulation, is there a feature that is similar to notes and decisions on Westlaw? And the short answer is yes. Here's how I use that. So again, to go to a very heavily cited statute, there are a few things that you can do from 14 U.S.C. 1983. The first is you can see all the cases that did cite that opinion, of which there are obviously hundreds and hundreds of thousands. So say you want to see only the cases that deal with police brutality, right? So I'm going to do police in the sense of brutal with the exclamation point to get really focused in. Now we're in a much more narrow version of this, and actually I only want to see that in the First Circuit, but only actually in the First Circuit Court of Appeals. Now we're down to the 36 cases, one of them which has been overturned or reversed, but the rest seem to be good law, that specifically cite the 42 U.S.C. 1983 and deal with the subject of police brutality. So that's in terms of finding cases on your topic really, really quickly that deal specifically with the statute you're looking for and the specific issues. That's the best way to do it. You even see the newest cases that deal with it. So now we're looking at cases, I guess, not as many police brutality cases citing 83 in First Circuit as you might think. But here's a case in the First Circuit of 2014, and you can dive right into that. Analyses are something similar. Analyses work in some ways like the notes. Not every statute will have 457 analyses on them, but you can use it. For example, again, I might want to see the articles written by the people who, including the Federal Public Defender Office of New Mexico, folks who've written in articles for us, the Capitol Defense Newsletter, et cetera. Different sections will have different kind of different authorities. You can dive right into it and see what are the articles written, in this case it's pretty short, about this particular subject. So that's our kind of notes and decisions. Let's see, you got a question. Can CARA pull a table of authorities from an opponent's brief and quickly save all cases and statutes cited and dump it in a folder? So here's how I do that today, and there's something coming soon that'll make it even easier. If you pull an opposing counsel's briefs, I'm pulling in a brief now from Toys R Us. I do literally any search, literally anything. So like the bankruptcy issue, I'll search for bankruptcy. As long as you go into the tab called Cited in Toys R Us, these are all the cases, cases, statutes, etc., cited in that brief, right? So this is like a digital table of authorities. You can even save this URL for yourself and email it to yourself, email it to a colleague, what have you. This is a digital table of authorities that you can use anytime to kind of reference any of these cases. Very soon what we'll be doing is adding little checkboxes next to these so that you can checkbox, print all of them into one big PDF. Something we've been asked, a few folks have asked about a lot, and I think it's something that you may want to do as well, and that will make things even easier. But it's a really good question. And we also make it very easy to save them as bookmark into a folder so you can save them digitally. That's all coming soon. But for the time being, you can count this as kind of like your digital table of authorities. Let me see if I get through some of these other questions from more people. Somebody asked if CARA only works with briefs and not Boolean or natural language queries alone. And I think that maybe to get to the question, CARA, the way that CARA works is by reading and understanding the contents of a legal document and using that to figure out what your context is. What are the facts, legal issues, jurisdiction that you're currently litigating in. And so it is accurate to say that CARA, at least today, only works if you have content to put into it. That's the power of CARA is if you started any litigation or even pre-litigation, you've drafted a complaint, you're basically involved in any active matter, then CARA can make your life a lot easier. That is the purpose and function of CARA and exactly how I would use it if I was using it in your situation. So somebody also asks, I think we're the same person, if you found a great case for your brief, can you use that in CARA? Yes. That is a really creative and really intelligent way to use CARA, is by downloading a case that you really like and putting that into the CARA search to make that part of it. But know that CARA will now start focusing in on the factual situation and jurisdiction of the case you found. So it may not be exactly on all fours with exactly your matter that you're working on, but it might be a really good way of finding more similar cases. And that's in fact why we created the similar and related cases tab that, as I showed you kind of a sneak peek of, is coming really soon, the recommended cases tab. That will be here soon. So look out for this, right? This recommended cases tab. All right. All right, folks, we've hit the 11 o'clock hour, and I think I've covered all the questions that I can see. So I hope this was educational for all of you. You've all learned how to be expert users of CARA, including some of CARA and Casetext, including some of the more advanced use cases. What I hope you'll see, and we went over this over the course of an hour, what I hope comes through is that actually using Casetext is pretty darn simple. It will remind you a lot of some of the platforms you've used in the past, but it's more affordable, easier to use. We hopefully are more friendly to work with. Overall, I hope you have a really great experience. The last thing I will say before we sign off, and something I can't emphasize enough, is that we as a company really, really value feedback and suggestions and opinions. And it's a little bit almost unusual for some folks who have been working with the likes of Westlaw and LexisNexis and so on for a very long time. Maybe not used to a company, treating you well and being friendly and really listening to your feedback and advice. But trust me when I say that we have a whole team here that tries to, if we hear about a user request or an issue, tries to solve it within 24 hours or less, including adding new features and functionality. So I recommend that you take advantage of that. If you have something you wish you saw on Casetext, content, feature functionality, anything, we will do our best to fix it or make what you want as fast as possible. Just do not be shy to reach out. And the best way you can do that, to get a hold of us, because we're, call us young millennials or whatever you want, but we are on chat and we are ready to kind of text message you very quickly. That's the easiest way to get a hold of us. I also should note that if you go to our contact us page at the very bottom, if you don't want to reach out that way, there are a few other ways to get a hold of us, including writing in a request through this kind of request form. And I believe the contact us form also covers our phone number, 833-CASE-TXT. But again, we work litigator hours, and you can click this little face here. That's the probably easiest way for you to get a hold of us, even when we're in our pajamas at home. Okay, I unfortunately have to sign off now. It's been really wonderful talking to all of you. Thank you for participating. The last question I'll answer is, it says that the session is being recorded. Can we get a copy? Absolutely yes. We'll be sending this out to everybody who participated, even the folks who signed up and missed it. And feel free to watch it on your own time and kind of go over things. And again, I even welcome feedback about this presentation. I'm jake@casetext.com. If you want to see something improved about the next time we do this kind of presentation, or want something else covered, please reach out. I know I still have a few of you on the line. Final plug. The only way we can really grow and really beat competitors like Westlaw and LexisNexis is by you recommending us to your friends. And at the bottom of the page with this little heart recommend, or under this question mark, heart recommend, if you recommend a friend join Casetext and they do, you get $100 and so do they. And so we really, really appreciate any time you post to a Facebook group, to your friends, to a LinkedIn update, whatever it might be, please do. It puts us, and you use a unique link you get through the share portal. It gives us, our customers and the folks who love us and use us a lot are why we can exist and why we can go up against some of the bigger, harder to beat competitors that we do. So thank you so much for being Casetext customers. We love you all. Please send in your recommendations and advice. I'm signing off now, but we'll send out this presentation very soon. Thank you, everybody.